Hey there. So, a lot of you saw my video about quitting Facebook some years ago, and I wanted to sort of do a sequel and explain why there is a sequel. So just a short recap. I quit Facebook because I had noticed that the algorithms were manipulating what you get to see and what you don't see, as well as all the various privacy concerns and psychological experiments that Facebook was doing on people. In the process, I tried to get a lot of people to leave Facebook with me and move on to some other website. I was completely unsuccessful, so that led to some internet social alienation, which is to me, I'm kind of used to being my own person and my beliefs and opinions and stuff, so it wasn't a really big deal to me. But I did build a pretty large group on Facebook for electric bicycle building, and one of the persons that I entrusted to keep that flame alive in my absence decided to rip off a couple of people in the group. So given that the other moderators had not taken action just yet, I decided that I would go back onto Facebook, get my admin rights back again, and personally boot that guy off in sheer fit of rage. And I thought, gosh, I really don't want to be a background on Facebook, but I decided, okay, I should probably try to nourish this group so that it can be self-sustaining, so I can get off here again. And unfortunately, I got sucked back into the madness, and I became a Facebook user. I did set some limits on my use of it. I would put a password on one computer that was so long that there's no way I could remember it, and then on my other computers would not have this password, so I would literally walk from one room to the other just to get away from Facebook, because I had such a hard time controlling myself looking for notifications. It went fairly well, but trying to control my own addictive personality on that site. But one thing I noticed is that when I came back, I started to notice what Facebook was starting to do to other people. In particular, it seems like it's something about the website and social media in general seems to have caused people to become very polarized and negative. And so I decided that I would use Facebook in a special way. I would try to get people to ignore things like political news and other emotion bait, and focus on things that are real and personal. But the problem is that in between my occasional posts trying to go against the grain, I would get filtered out and by the algorithms, and people wouldn't see my message. So I got frustrated with this yet again, in that even though I figured out a way to use Facebook in a less harmful way, I actually couldn't convince anyone to use Facebook in a less harmful way, and it just kept bugging me. But I had not really decided what to do about this group that I had started that was so successful and big, because I felt like, on one hand, I don't want to support this web Facebook site, and I really want people to go back to the web form version of the community we created. On the other hand, if I let it go, I've given that like Facebook is 90% of the web traffic for social discussion, like I'm leaving a gigantic hole. But eventually I decided to leave the hole and leave the group yet again. So I have been off Facebook for 5 months, something like that, yet again, and I'm actually very grateful to be off Facebook again, because I feel like it fucks with your mind. Like, not only is it a leak for your privacy, and a lot of the content on there is shrill and useless. It's just that something about the way it's structured just makes you view reality in a way it actually isn't. If you spend all your time online, the way that you perceive the world is going to be extremely negative, because gosh, there's so many different factors, but you leave the house and you notice, people aren't screaming at each other over microaggressions and beating each other's heads in over what Trump is doing or not doing. I mean, it's really the social media and the internet as a whole has created an alternate reality, and some people are so sucked into that they cannot see the basics of reality anymore. So I feel really great to be free from that influence because I've gotten my mind back. I've been quite a bit more productive. I have made some more relationships with some actually interesting people. I also find myself rather disappointed, though, by the people that choose to stay on that site, even though they know it's bad for them. When I left my group, I decided, instead of completely abandoning the Facebook community, that I would provide an alternative on a site called MeWe. And now I got maybe half of the people that are actively discussing things in that group to join MeWe, but almost promptly they decided to play dead when they got in the group, and so I've noticed this on MeWe where people sign up and they just don't do anything. So I've realized that we're really dealing with a demon here in Facebook, is that people, even given a equivalent alternative that works pretty much the same way, doesn't spy on you, doesn't have ads, doesn't track you, doesn't run psychological experiments, people just don't use it. I'm beginning to think that, like in the early 90s, there was a term thrown around a lot called internet addiction, and I'm beginning to think that a lot of people are actually addicted to this website, like in the most formal definition possible, almost like a drug addiction. So, despite my best efforts, I can't seem to get people away from this, so I've decided to just kind of go my own way. So I hang out on MeWe, Reddit, YouTube, dev.to, which is for programmers doing web development, and a couple other tiny little forums like the Endosphere forum. I hang out there, and I have so much higher quality interactions with people because it's not just like this giant flood of, oh, look at this ad, oh, look at this cat video, blah blah blah. Like Facebook's constantly like a Vegas slot machine. It's just like hyper stimulating. And people don't seem to have actual real conversations on there, but on like these sort of slow-cooked internet mediums, it's like you actually see people building relationships and having real conversations. So I've actually been enjoying that a lot. The only thing is that as far as my internet life goes, I've alienated myself from almost everyone I know. So I've had to make a completely different set of people that I discuss with, like a set of friends, just because I left Facebook and nobody will go anywhere else. So that's unfortunate, but I've gone my own way when I see a lot of problems in society, a lot of times, and I think that it's still the correct choice. I would rather be completely alone and write about Facebook than go on there and try to continue to convince people that it's really bad for you. But hopefully, it looks like the government's giving Facebook a nice spanking. They put Mark Zuckerberg in a booster chair. I'm sure you saw that in front of Congress. That was fucking gold. And the EU really doesn't like what these giant monopoly media sources are doing. So I think eventually Facebook, their whole business model is going to collapse. Even while you can go and look at reports like stock reports about Facebook, and you see, oh, they're making all kinds of money, but that's eventually going to end because the government is terrified of the fact that they have more influence over their citizenry than the actual government does, and so anything that competes with government has to be killed by government because they think of themselves as the alpha male of society, I guess, that needs to take care of all of us people who can't think for ourselves. And unfortunately in this case, there are lots of people that are not acting in their own self-interest. Facebook is destroying productivity in America. There's all kinds of studies. There's a lot of articles about people getting bullied on Facebook, having the service make them depressed, all sorts of all sorts of evidence continues to come up that shows that Facebook is a really bad thing, but people are just not acting in their best interest. So what's going to happen is the government's going to step in. I mean, that's just kind of the way things go, right? Like with things like crack cocaine. Eventually, the government's going to come in and go, "We need to stop this." I think Facebook's kind of not exactly unlike that, although you don't have to pay as much money to use Facebook as you do to smoke crack. But it seems like a lot of the effects are kind of similar. I know that when I was on Facebook, like I know that it was tingling my dopamine neurons. I have a history of drug addiction, and I have a very addictive personality. I know what it's like to do almost every drug on the planet. And when I was using Facebook, it was just like it was touching all those parts of the brain that connected to the reward centers, and that I found that very disturbing. So I think to call it an addiction is very accurate. But nonetheless, this is just kind of a rant about why I left Facebook for the second time, and why I'm never coming back. And if you are struggling with leaving Facebook because your friends are on there, I would recommend you go the same way I did. Do what's best for your mental health. I mean, in the end, it's you have to save yourself from shit like this. Like this is the same thing with the ketogenic diet. I could have continued following all of the official recommendations, and it's completely socially acceptable to stuff your face with carbohydrates as a type 2 diabetic. In fact, a lot of doctors would recommend you do that. I could have followed social pressure and official authority pressure and fallen apart. With Facebook, I also decided to go my own way because it's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for almost anyone that uses it. Maybe if you need to keep in touch with family or something, it could be useful, but you could also do that through email. You could also do something really radical and pick up the phone or visit somebody, which is way better than visiting somebody on the internet. Although I know that it's very difficult when you're into niche topics where very few people are into that. Get some real human interaction. It seems like we've just kind of forgotten that, and it's become a part of our national mental sickness. Just like the processed food junk we eat, just like all sorts of strange behaviors that Americans engage in that are counterproductive. It's no measure of health to be adjusted to this. Go your own way. Assert your own independence from all the trash and idiocy in the world. You'll feel so much better. I mean, it's alienating. Don't get me wrong. It's very alienating. People are still asking me, when are you coming back to Facebook? It's not happening. It's not happening. I want the best life for me. I'm not going to put myself back in that mental torture camp. You just kind of have to go your own way when society is walking off the cliff like lemmings. And the more people that do that, the more examples there are of self-empowering, actions of quitting. The problem is, with say joining a website like MeWe, is that your friends aren't on. Why are your friends not on there? Because their friends are not on there. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like you could get your friends and family to join, and then you wouldn't have that problem, and MeWe would be completely useful. It'd be a great site. In fact, it's supported by the guy that started the fucking World Wide Web. Okay, he endorses the damn thing. And look it up. Look up the people that founded MeWe. They're great. They're great people. And it's not even the only site you could go to. I'm sure there's other good social media sites that are perfectly fine and usable. It's just you have to be the first one to walk away, and eventually people will start to follow. The skepticism keeps coming. So if you feel that you can't go on some other media site because you're going to miss out on being in contact with your friends, be the first person on there. And make it harder for other people to go, gee, maybe I shouldn't be on Facebook because none of my friends are on there. You know what I mean? Vote with your fucking feet. So, yeah. I'll be on MeWe if you want to chat with me. Enjoying the lack of evil stuff that's on Facebook. I hope you join me on there. I actually, the electric bike group that I have running on there is called Magnetic Motion. I'm kind of on the fence about continuing to run it because I got about 200 people to sign up, but only 3 people decided to use the website. But you know, it's worth a try. I'm gonna give it another year or so to see if people decide to start using MeWe, or maybe we find another website where we can converse that's not so bad. And yeah, in the meantime, I will be enjoying my freedom from all the noise, and I hope I've at least inspired you to think about doing that. And yeah, have a good one.